Hi, it's Goze, the Black Love Permissionist, and it's day 27 of 31 days of permissionism. And today I'm going to talk about how feelings carry data too. Feelings carry data too, just not the kind that capitalism measures. And we've all heard feelings aren't facts, but why do we act like feelings are inferior to facts or facts are superior to feelings? For Black Americans, that mindset is harmful. And today we're going to talk about why. One, I think it's important to understand that facts are not neutral. Facts are not neutral. They are evidence-based, but oftentimes facts are influenced by capitalism and white supremacy. You have to think about when we're looking at studies, and I love research, I love scholarly support for the claims that I make. I don't post a video where I'm talking about anything that I coach on that I haven't thoroughly researched, that I haven't held up against evidence to see, is there evidence to support, clarify, or correct my claims? Because I take it very seriously what I say. I don't want to just regurgitate rhetoric, but I think it's important to understand that capitalism influences budget and funding for research. I think it's also important to note that feelings carry truth and wisdom and memories that facts can't always capture. Because of this overinflation of the value of facts, combined with many other factors, right? Racism, patriarchy, many of us have learned to code switch when it comes to our emotions. One of the ways I see this is through us thinking through our emotions, where we don't actually feel, we think. And oftentimes, even when we're saying that we feel something, we'll tell someone, I feel like you are playing in my face. I feel like when you did whatever you did, your motives were to do blah, blah, blah. And we'll use a lot of thought words, even if we call them feelings. Many times, we don't even use emotional language. Oftentimes, we haven't even been taught to understand emotional language. One thing I've seen is a lot of us, we couldn't point out an emotion in a police lineup if that emotion tried to rob us. And I'm telling you, when we suppress and repress our emotions, they are absolutely robbing us. So what ends up happening with a lot of us is what I call performative regulation or emotional code switching, where on the outside we seem calm, we seem cool. You ask us how we're doing. Oh, I'm fine. We might even be able to carry on with some small talk or be completely functional, even in a dysregulated state. Because for many Black Americans, our survival has depended on our ability to mask our emotions, especially those of us who have grown up in homes where somebody will give you something to cry about if you were already crying, or you were told to fix your face. A lot of us haven't even had the permission to feel or express the emotions that come up for us. When we focus too much on facts as if they are superior to feelings, we skip some steps in our emotional development. So when you have a bunch of people walking around dysregulated, but on the outside, they're showing none of the symptoms, our society rewards it. We call them cool, calm, and collected, even if that's not how they felt. I can speak from a very personal place. I come from a family where we have a lot of military people. I have a cousin who just passed. He was a police officer, and on the outside, oh, you would just think he was chilling, because the culture of my family is to get it done, right? It's remarkable when you see us come together, how we can all just pull something together quickly. It often doesn't require a lot of talking because we're like a machine. We get things done. And this cousin, young man, he was no different. But see, I know him personally. And I know that underneath that calm exterior was a lot of unprocessed emotion. So we reward people who seem so calm on the outside. And then when they pass away, or they end up with a terminal illness, or they crash out in some big way in front of a lot of people, then we're we're shocked. But like I said, if you've been told all your life to control your emotions or to manage your emotions, to deal with your emotions, we don't realize how much of our language around emotions is rooted in white supremacy, domination, this idea that emotions are less valuable than they are, when the evidence shows that they're actually more valuable than we give them credit for. I used to work at a recovery center where 75% of the client base was Black American to be specific. And the staff was majority white. I often brought up why that was problematic, and even just from witnessing how some of those therapists and counselors would talk to the clients, I knew that a lot of this was it was a cultural issue, and a lot of their philosophies were rooted in stoicism, and they spent a lot of time telling the clients that they needed to control their emotions, to the point where they'd even criticize certain clients. I'll never forget, this one client was having a procedure done, and he wasn't comfortable, and so he asked for the procedure to end calmly. He was ignored, so he asked for it to end again. Got a little louder, ignored, and finally he starts going off. And I remember the person who was performing the procedure said, "Oh, you just don't know how to control your emotions yet." And he's like, "I can control my emotions just fine. I'm just telling you I don't want this thing happening to my body." And I remember sitting there going, wow. Not only are they telling people who have a history of numbing their emotions that now they're supposed to control their emotions to the point of ignoring things happening to their bodies, they're also being seen as less advanced in their recovery journey because they're not controlling their emotions. This is my thing. You wouldn't tell somebody to control a river, and emotions are like rivers. You can't control it. You can swim with it, you can float, you can navigate the river, you can sit by the river. But rivers are not meant to be controlled. And if you come coach with me, neither are emotions. I want us to get out of this white supremacist mindset that Black emotions are bad. I teach my clients how to inquire of their emotions, how to learn from their emotions, how to listen to their emotions, how to identify, acknowledge, accept, feel, release emotions. Because again, I teach that emotions are our friends, and they are smart friends. They carry a lot of important data about what we really believe about ourselves and our surrounding world, particularly our relationships. Some people have a heightened sensitivity to emotions, and I would say these are spiritual gifts for people like that. I have a heightened sensitivity to emotions. I can feel people's emotions. Sometimes I can feel other people's emotions almost as if they're my own. Learning how to identify my own emotional space and what is that telling me about my past, my present, and where I'm headed has been instrumental to my journey. There are why some people's presence feels like a hug. You know, why some people, when you get around them, you just start bawling your eyes out. We don't cry around everybody, right? There are some people where you just can't wear that mask. Some people's presence is so safe and so nurturing because you know that they understand. They deeply empathize. They have wells of compassion, and you take your armor off when you're around them. I love research. I love digging deep. This 31 days of permissionism has required hours and hours of work for me. I mean, and I got to give it up to the content creators, because you get a 3-minute video or 6 minutes of footage, and it took hours of work just to get that thing, that thing up. But I would say if I had to choose, right? If I had to choose between feelings and facts, I'll be honest, I'm picking feelings every time. Because with feelings, at least we could have authentic expression. At least there's something human, tangibly human, that I can work with. And in my experience, it's harder to help someone release emotional constipation than it is to help regulate someone who's in a really emotional state. And I want to be honest, just because feelings are fleeting, it doesn't mean that they disappear. quite the opposite. Suppressed, repressed, and depressed emotions can stay in the body for a long time. Emotions are felt in the body, even when our minds try to rationalize them away. That's why so many of us can say, oh, I'm fine, oh, I'm good, oh, I'm living my best life. And our blood pressure will tell a different story. Our sinuses will tell a different story. Our chest being tight will tell a different story. The diabetes will tell a different story. Our eating habits will tell a different story. That back hurting will tell a different story, because the body, as the book says, keeps the score. And again, I would choose feelings over facts any day, but Black Love Permissionism is really about balance. And I think that's why I'm leaning so hard into this, because we have ignored our emotions for centuries in this country. And I just don't find that to be helpful. I think we have a lot more to learn from our emotions and about our emotions. And before we can even start advancing, we're going to have to start simply being able to talk about our emotions and learning what it actually means to regulate. Some of us seem to think, oh, if you're still talking about your feelings, then you're regressing. And I would say, no, we're actually starting to turn a corner. And I appreciate that. Even with the crash outs, we're still moving somewhere. And rage is not a negative emotion. If used properly, rage can really get us from point A to point B. Rage can be quite the timeline shift. So I have some questions for you. How have you been taught to think about, feel about, or talk about emotions? Have you ever been told you were too emotional? And how did that affect you? Do you think that emotions are something to control? Or do you believe that they're something to navigate? I'd like to leave you with a coaching assignment today. Think about some emotions that you have been feeling this week or today. Let's think about the emotions that showed up that maybe were a little more uncomfortable. I'd like for you to label them. If you can write them in a journal, great. If you can record them into your phone, awesome. But even if you just want to name them out loud, pick about 3 or 4 main emotions that came up for you today. And if uncomfortable emotions came up, take the time to even scan your body for things that you felt. If you felt any strange sensations or uncomfortable sensations in your body today, but you didn't consciously feel any emotions, DM me or type it in the comments and let me know what you felt in your body. And I'm going to ask you a question about your emotional state as you were feeling that in your body, so that we can really pinpoint what you felt. I want you to ask that emotion why it's here. And I want you to take some time to listen. And then I want you to thank that emotion. And then I want you to tell that emotion that it is safe to go, that you're listening and you understand. And I want you to tend to that part of yourself with gentleness and compassion.